The following is a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
Welcome to the System is Down.
All right. Yes. We're doing it. We're doing it. We're going to talk about Flat Earth again because I know you guys just love it so much deep down. Even though you, on the outside, you pretend like it makes you insane with anger.
I'm insane with anger!
What's up, Downers? Welcome back to another great episode of the least comfortable show on the web. The System is Down, and thank you so much for faithfully tuning in every Monday morning for your weekly dose of discomfort. And if you're new here and you like to get weird, then you're in the right place. So go ahead and give a big thank you to whoever told you about the show and invited you to listen, because it's going to be a fun one. Now, a lot of you already know that I personally love this topic. I love this theory, and not just because it rustles everyone's jimmies, but whether I fully believe it or not, I just find it is at the very least a fascinating and exciting thought experiment. And really, I mean, if you look into it, if you set your angry knee-jerk reactions aside and just dig into it a little bit, you're going to see that there's at least some weird stuff here that's not quite adding up. Like, these people aren't just believing this crazy idea for no reason. There's some cool stuff to it, and it's a fun theory. Calm down, it's a fun theory. It is. But people just get so mad at the idea that someone else thinks that the Earth is a different shape. I mean, you can say things like 9/11 was an inside job, the government killed Kennedy, the moon landing was faked, Illuminati, chemtrails, fluoride, vaccines, aliens, Freemasons, all that stuff. You can even say our entire reality is a simulation. Elon Musk and Neil deGrasse Tyson have both said that they think there's a really good chance that we're in a simulation and none of this is real. If you bring up any of these topics, people generally, I mean, they might think you're a little crazy, but they don't get upset about them. They don't get physically angry. They'll at least hear you out. If you say the two words, flat Earth, people lose their freaking minds. Their faces melt off like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, try it. Try it sometime. I'm not exaggerating. So to recap, you can say, reality's a simulation. You don't exist. I don't exist. The Earth doesn't exist. None of this is real. And you can still be called a world-renowned scientist, right? Yeah. Now, you say the Earth exists, but I think it's a different shape. Then you're an idiot and a danger to society.
In a free society, you can and should think whatever you want. And if you want to think the world is flat, go right ahead. But if you think the world is flat and you have influence over others, then being wrong becomes being harmful to the health, the wealth, and the security of our citizenry.
I love it. You love it. Be honest. You love it. So settle down. It's not going to hurt you. We're going to do it. We're going to talk about it again. You're going to listen. Here's my conversation with Robbie Davidson. You guys, let's get weird. My guest today is documentarian, public speaker, organizer of the National Flat Earth Conference, and just all-around fascinating individual. Celebrate Truth's Robbie Davidson. Robbie, how are you doing, man?
Very good. Thanks for having me on. It's a real pleasure.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. As my listeners know, I am, at the very least, a big enthusiast of a lot of the theories that we're going to be going over tonight, and the flat Earth theories, scientism, spiritual deception, and what have you. I can't say I personally am 100% sold on the ideas, but I absolutely love digging into them and talking about all of it, even though, people seem to get pretty triggered whenever I do. But Robbie, I heard your story in particular on another podcast. I thought your method of presenting the ideas and making everything really, presenting it in a really clear, concise manner and connecting everything together was just fantastic. I really wanted to bring you on, and you were gracious enough to agree to. So I guess just start from the top. Give me your background and tell me everything.
Well, like I said, I mean, this is, we're at 2018, and this is probably the last topic I ever thought I'd be speaking on. Like many, when you first hear of this topic, you laugh and you ridicule, and I did. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard of.
Right.
But once I started actually looking into it, there was a lot of credibility as far as the research I did. Now, I was always kind of known as kind of a conspiracy theorist. I'd always look into things. I'd be skeptical on things. But of course, you're never skeptical about the Earth. Mm-hmm. So, once I took the time to actually start exploring it, for me, one of the biggest conspiracies that I kind of held on to was that they didn't land on the moon. So what I say to a lot of people is, if you're holding on to the fact that they went to the moon, no problem, in the 1960s and 70s, then this topic's going to be hard for you to digest. But for me, I already believe that they didn't land on the moon. So I was open to saying, well, wait a minute. If they didn't go to the moon, well, how far can they go? And it's like, well, why would they lie? And all these questions that a lot of people bring up in this topic. So for me, my upbringing was believing a lot of, what scientism had taught me, whether it was, showing me, the proof, the reality of our world. And what I was startled to find out was that most of, what I was holding on to was indeed scientism, and it wasn't science. I'll go on the record and say that I'm a big believer. I love true science. What I'm against is scientism, and that's why I came out with my last two documentary films, Scientism Exposed and Scientism Exposed 2, because I think a lot of people, aren't familiar with those terms. And, well, what's the difference between science and scientism? So I opened the documentary, Scientism Exposed, showing the dichotomy between the two. And it's important to structure that because, again, a lot of our origins, a lot of what we believe and hold on to, and we believe is science, a lot of it's scientism. It's true. It's not true science. It's not under the empirical method. True science, an experimentation was something that you could test, you could observe, you could repeat. A lot of what we're seeing is theoretical. A lot of it's an agenda. A lot of it's spirituality. And we'll get into that further in this broadcast. But for me, coming to this topic was really, it blew my mind because I never thought that something could, wage an assault on mankind with a deception this large. And yet here we are talking about this topic. And while a lot of people can come to this topic and not necessarily agree with it 100%, I never say that truly is important. What's important is to search for the truth. What's important is to ask the questions. And there's nothing wrong with asking questions. As ridiculous as they might sound, what's wrong with just taking a little bit of time looking into it? Because how can in 2018 this many people believe, in the fact that we're not on a spinning ball flying through space? To me, this is startling. And as, putting together the conferences, the Flat Earth International Conference last year in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then I'm putting together two big ones here, one in Canada, one also in Denver, Colorado for this year, the attendance is huge. And the people that are reaching out, we've got people, you've got engineers, we've got pilots, we've got even scientists coming forward. In my last documentary film, Scientism Exposed 2, I have a few scientists that, are coming forward. They're even telling stories of really good scientists that are trying to actually, support the true scientific method, and yet they're worried for their job. They're worried that if they bring forward the data that they're collecting, they're going to lose their livelihood. So we're dealing with a big boys group now. We're dealing with you better play along. You better go with the theories. And if you step out of this, things are going to look a little rocky for you. So there's definitely something going on a little bit more sinister than most people believe with the space agencies, with the scientism agencies. And this is, what we're talking about tonight.
Absolutely. So what initially got you into this topic? Like what turned you, from wherever you were in your life before, flat earth, scientism guy, basically
Sure.
Science heretic, to where you are now?
Sure. Well, I mean, the biggest thing would be at the age of 21, I was miraculously saved. I was the last person that would ever be one of those guys that would be, running around with a Bible or, even, preaching from the Bible. But again, there was a miracle that happened in my life. But part of the journey after that happened was getting into, creationism and really starting to expose the lies of evolution. For me, creation science was a big, big part of my journey, looking at the fact that not only, is important to believe in something, and that's fine to believe something. What's important is the truth. So for me, becoming a Christian, I didn't want to just believe, in a religion. I wanted to know what was the truth. And I really took to heart, what Jesus says in John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So for me, I'm kind of like, okay, well, I had to examine this man. If he's claiming to be the truth, either like C.S. Lewis has said, either he's a lunatic, he's a liar, or he's Lord. And so in my investigation, I really started looking into it, and I wanted to know for sure, are the claims of this one man true or not? Because really, you can believe in whatever you want, but believing is not important. What the truth is what is important. So for me, the, search for truth became paramount, and getting into, the origins and getting into what science had taught me, breaking down the lies was really an eye-opener. It wasn't just the fact that I was going against science or I was going against evolution. Now was a time when I was starting to investigate both sides, where I was finding out that there was not just missing links, there was massive chasms. There were entire, things that really you couldn't scientifically verify. For example, there wasn't one transitional fossil ever found, ever. And yet, they're saying this is scientific proof, and this is, there's no debate. And we hear this all the time now with mainstream science. There's no more debate. The science is settled. Well, I'm sorry, but science is never settled. It's all about questioning and moving forward. So again, that was kind of a big part of my journey. But it wasn't until 2015 when actually, interesting enough, I came across a video, after laughing at flat Earth for, a couple years prior, just thinking, who in the right mind could believe such nonsense? Of course, we've always known that we're on a ball. It wasn't until I came across a video really mocking Genesis, and it was an actual video put together not in support of flat Earth. It was mocking Genesis and showing the literal interpretation of Genesis, showing the firmament, the waters, dividing the waters from the waters. And it was showing this kind of cartoon depiction of God creating the world in a really nonsensical way when it came to just the literal view of what Genesis was purporting. And I started looking at it. I'm like, yeah, but that's what the Bible says. Because, if I was going to be a Bible literalist, believing the 6 days, that I believed in 6-day literal creationism versus millions of years, like evolution had taught, then I'm like, well, why does it say that? So I got really curious. And again, I went on my journey from there and started coming across different, videos. One of them was Mark Sargent's Flat Earth Clues. Sure. And for me, seeing all these dots being connected, I was like, whoa, this is interesting. Because again, there was a lot of stuff that just didn't add up. And I was like, I want to go down this journey, because it was like, I wanted to find out about Antarctica. I wanted to find out about, like, could it be, So for me, it was just a quest on truth. And I studied the subject for about 3 months solid before I came out with my YouTube channel, Celebrate Truth. It wasn't until August 2015 that I finally just threw it out there. I was always a vocal guy. People knew me as passionate, and I was outspoken. And for years, I was always thinking one day, I would like to take my skills, whether it was, filmmaking or just speaking on a topic. And it wasn't until this topic where it was like, now's the time. And that's when I got onto YouTube in 2015 on this topic. And my first video was contemplating what we've been taught about stars. We're taught that there are other suns and they're light years away, and 1 light year is 7 trillion miles. You start thinking of these distances, and to me, when you start getting into evolution, they talk about millions and millions of years, right? Well, with the universe, they talk about billions and trillions of years, So what I said is, wait a minute, could it be that all this stuff is connected? And really, when I stopped and thought about it, for me, already looking at evolution, and once I had really researched it through Great Creation Ministries, even Ken Hovind and other people like that really started completely destroying evolution. I used to have friends in that were really staunch, Dawkins lovers, and when they would see kind of how it was getting broken down, they were even surprised, and they're like, well, maybe it's not so airtight as what I thought. So to me, it was like, well, wait a minute. So if evolution, where does evolution come from? And again, it came from the Big Bang. So we had to go back to the supposed nothing exploded and created everything scenario that science teaches us. That's the scientific definition. Nothing exploded and created everything. That's what they believe, right? And yet we're the crazy ones that say, well, wait a minute, we think that a god or an intelligent design designed all of this beautiful design. So, but again, science will sit there and say, no, it was a random explosion. So I wanted to go back to the Big Bang. I wanted to go right back to the start and say, well, wait a minute. If evolution is a lie, then Big Bang has to be a lie. What if for the longest time, as many Christians were doing, they were attaching God to the bang? Instead of saying nothing, they were saying, well, God created the bang, right? God spoke everything into existence. And that was it. The debate was over in their mind. And they're like, well, who's sillier? You say nothing, I say God. But what they did as a disservice is what they did is they attached God to a deception from the very beginning. So I said, hypothetically, what if that's a lie? And what if none of that adds up? And sure enough, when you start looking into Genesis, it talks about the sun, moon, and stars being created after the earth. Well, if you understand Big Bang cosmology or even science that model, there are no Earths, before suns, moons, and stars. Suns exist before Earths, So everything was backwards. Everything was further away. If something in the Bible said it was small, science said it was big. If it said it was young, they said it was old. And what I found really interesting, and I tell people this all the time, regardless whether you're coming to this topic, you're laughing at it, you think it's ridiculous, sure enough. But hypothetically, what if you just started looking at every single one of these literal interpretations? And again, I'm coming from a scriptural point of view. Sure. There are many people in flat earth that don't at all, they're not religious at one bit. So I want to make that distinction because a lot of people think, oh, that flat earth, that's some religious cult or something. Right. There are people that are Bible literalists, and there are a lot of Christians in flat earth, but there are a lot that aren't. There's a lot of people coming to this through the scientific method. There's also people that are very conspiratorial. They're just trying to get, connect all the dots, trying to figure this all out. Wait a minute, whoa. And I say, hypothetically, if what we're saying here is true, there is no bigger lie than this. And I think that's fascinating even in itself. If you're just one of those truth seekers or you like to kind of connect dots, it's kind of like the Matrix. Can you imagine something so grand? It's fun to explore. And most people that explore this, they're blown away at how much proof there is to support the fact that we've been lied to and that we're not on a spinning ball flying through space. Sure.
Now, yeah, like you said, there's people on both sides, and I think a lot of people look at the topic. It's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, I mean, a lot of Christians will aggressively push back against the flat Earth idea. I feel like there are probably a lot of people who might hear this and even reject faith or Christianity because it's the crazy people of Christianity. Do you think that there's harm possibly in that, like people rejecting faith because of the type of thing that you're putting out?
No, because it says the gospel is foolishness to those, again, for me, the idea that, with whatever I say can somehow impact, the gospel or impact Christianity. Christianity is large, right? So when we're getting into religion or we're getting into this topic, no, I don't think so. Because again, I don't even say that this topic is salvational in the sense that it's absolutely necessary at all when it comes to the bigger picture. I think it's fascinating. I think it's important that we understand that there is an evil force. And most people that don't even, buy into religion, they still kind of look at some wicked people that run the world. And it's like, well, what do these guys believe? And there's some sort of sinister force here. So if all of a sudden this is true, then to me, the biggest way that they would try to disregard the truth of a creator is through, a means when it comes to scientism. And I think what greater way of doing it through something that's been masqueraded as truth, reality. And when you sit there and say, nope, evolution is true, and yep, we're an accident and we're just an explosion, there is no need for God. So I think one of the biggest ways that they've completely destroyed God in people's minds is through, science. That's why I think it's important to really critically look at science. It's like, just because you hear one day that scientists discovered, 5 new exoplanets, well, look into it further. Just because, people, discover things. So I think that we're giving them way too much power. I think there's way too much authority in science. They come over, as the authoritative, discovering and also validators of all things that are true. And to me, there's nothing wrong with just questioning things, right? Is ask these questions and figure out, what could be going on. But again, whether a person is coming at this and they're not religious at all, that's fine. But what they'll discover that if this topic is true, or that we've been lied to on many fronts trying to conceal a creator, then you're left with the idea that, well, wait a minute, if science has lied to me, then it must be true that we were created, because there's no other logical explanation. Either, we're an accident and it's all random, or there's intelligence, there's an intelligent designer behind the design. There is no other option. So you're left with those two, whether you want to get into religion or not, that's a completely different topic. But for me, myself as a Christian, I've looked at the literal interpretation of the Bible, and I hold that up as, a big part of my journey. But it wasn't just the Bible. Like I said, true empirical science proves that we are not on a spinning ball flying through space. There's not one scientific experiment to prove the curvature of the Earth at 8 inches per mile squared, or the movement of the Earth. Now, why is that? In 2018, yes, we got pictures, we got videos, and people say, you stupid moron, have you seen this, have you seen that? I understand that, and you can believe that, and you can believe a picture, you can believe a video, but we all know that videos and pictures can be doctored. Whether you don't want to go that far, that's up to you. But what I'm saying is scientifically, how do you prove the curvature of the Earth at 8 inches per mile squared? That's the formula at 25,000 miles. I mean, this is science. This is not me bringing up these figures. We should easily go out and easily do these experiments just to prove it. Or, the movement. We're supposedly spinning at the equator 1,000 miles per hour. It should be incredibly easy. But what we find is when we look back in history and all throughout history, when they've done experiments using the true scientific method, they've all failed trying to prove the movement of the Earth. So to this day, it doesn't exist. Now, I want to go on the record and let anyone know, anyone watching this, if you can go out and you can find an experiment to prove this, you will be famous, okay? So if you're big on, you want money, you want power, you want fame, hey, this is a great way to do it. Not only can you debunk these stupid flat earthers, you can come up with the experiment using true science to prove the curvature or the movement of the Earth. You're going to be famous. I mean, I'm talking like Einstein, I'm talking like a huge name. So I say, I challenge people, go out and actually do this. But if this can be discovered and this can be proven through the scientific method, I'm done. No more. I'm not hosting conferences. I'm not believing in this nonsense. But I've been at this for almost 3 years. I'm pleading with people to really come up with it because really we're coming down to a scientific, reality here. If it can scientifically be proven that we're on a ball 25,000 miles, right, at 8 inches per mile squared when you get into the curvature rates, and you can all look these figures up, then it is the truth. I mean, that to me is the important thing here to understand. Science is good. I love science. Scientism is not. And you guys, everyone listening, if you're holding on to scientism, wow, you really better be careful what you're holding on to, because if you find out you're not holding on to true science, then what exactly are you believing to be truth?
Sure. So by scientism, do you just mean, we're told these statistics, we're rocketing through the universe at X amount of miles per hour, and we're rotating at this amount, and we're going around the sun at this amount. We just accept that. Is that kind of what you're meaning? Like, not necessarily things that we have a lot of evidence and provable, tests that we can do?
And for anyone honestly listening to this, my first documentary, Scientism Exposed, is free on YouTube. Go watch it because it will really get into depth. And again, the first documentary really doesn't even mention this topic, doesn't mention flat Earth.
Right.
It really starts.
I watched it and I was disappointed. I was hoping for the flat Earth stuff.
Well, there you go with the sequel. You had to get into part 2 because it gets deeper into the subject. But what I'm saying is part of that, the idea of putting together that documentary was exactly for the reason that a lot of people that, you send them a flat Earth documentary, they won't give it a time of the day. They're just like, I'm not sitting down and watching a documentary for 2 hours on that topic. So
I found that out today really quickly. Yeah.
Very quickly.
I posted about it, just said, hey, if you have any questions for a flat Earth guy, let me know. And I mean, some of the main ones were ask him, the usual YouTube comments. Ask him when he was dropped on his head as a child, and that
exactly. Yeah, and don't reproduce, and too late on that one. But anyways, the idea that and again, it's unbelievable to me just the amount of just disgusting comments, and I have never been in anything, even Christianity. I've got less viral hate when it comes to any topic, but this topic, wow, I mean, retard, moron, I mean, all these, and most of these people, it's funny, a couple of times, I'm not much for like a debater. I know some really good debaters if, somebody really wanted to have a debate, but the odd time I'll challenge someone. I'll be like, come on my show, live stream, let's do it. No one takes me up on the offer because most people that are loudest calling me the moron, come on, and we'll do a debate and we'll see. Most times I find that people that are holding on to, even their Big Bang cosmology, they know a lot less than their model than they understand. They don't know curvature rates. They don't you had mentioned about, flying. The idea that we're flying around the sun at 66,000 miles per hour, right? We're traveling around the Milky Way. All of these distances, most people don't even really know these numbers, So what I'm saying is if you're going to call someone a moron and a retard, at least really study your model and understand your heliocentric heliocentric Big Bang cosmology before you call someone a moron, because when you start equating all these numbers, it's important to kind of figure all that out. But yeah, exactly. And a lot of people will do that. So going back to Scientism Exposed, coming together with a documentary that wouldn't mention the topic, that doesn't have it in the title, someone might sit down and watch that. And really my whole hope for that was just if it got you questioning one thing, maybe looking into NASA a little bit more, maybe looking into evolution, maybe looking into one little thing. If they've lied to you about one little thing, then how many other lies have they told you? What other lies? And again, to fact check it, you could hear something in that documentary, and you hear Dawkins in his own voice, you hear Neil deGrasse Tyson, you hear Bill Nye. So it's not like I'm saying something. You hear the clips yourself, and you're like, I want to see if that's true, or I want to see, the idea that, supposedly we went to 250,000 miles to the moon in 1960s and 70s. Mm-hmm. But since then, supposedly, you can look this up, any space agency, man has only gone 400 miles. Well, if you start understanding that 250,000 miles, why is it that in almost 50 years, the furthest that man can get in a spacecraft is 400 miles? That's a fraction of a percent. Most people seeing that and looking that up and going, my goodness, that he's right. They're really going, well, wait a minute, that's weird, right? So it kind of that light bulb goes off, and they say, why is it? Not just NASA, SpaceX. I mean, you can get into the Russian Space Administration, you get into any of these agencies, all of them, wait a minute, something's weird. All that technology that we've got, and we can't even go even like a tenth of the distance. We're not even a fraction of the percent. So something's off. So in the first documentary, I just go through that. I go through all these inconsistencies. People in the ISS claim that they're gathering all this research and data. So one day, hopefully, they can go back to the moon and off to Mars and beyond. And you're like, wait a minute, you're in the ISS. Well, why don't you just go there? It should be a piece of cake. Right. So to me, this is the big thing for anybody that is listening, watching. Understand that the moon landing is pivotal in this thing. Look into the moon landing. And so Scientism Exposed, I get into space, I get into other areas of scientism, and really start breaking down the lies and the inconsistencies and just the weirdness. And if one thing gets you thinking and going on your journey, great. That's all I want to do is just get you going on your own journey for truth. Whatever you discover, whatever you find, don't listen to me. And I say this all the time in my interviews and in my documentaries, is don't listen to me. Go out and do your own research. But I'm saying this topic is important because, again, it comes down to the origin. It comes down to everything that we've been taught as reality. If, in fact, it's a lie, it's a big deal. So I say, yes, truth is important, and it's important for everyone just to go on that journey. You might not go as far as believing that, the earth is flat. And again, and we can get into that a little bit more, because most times when people think flat earth, they think of boats going over the edge. Mm-hmm. They think of all this stuff. And
I've been doing question. Where's
exactly.
The edge? Why
and I've been doing
floated off.
and I've been doing all these interviews this week because, again, one of the conferences that I'm doing here in Canada, there's been a lot of activity with the press and stuff. And again, I try to explain to them, first of all, we don't believe that we're flying in space. The idea of a pancake disc flying through space, no, we don't believe that at all. Flat Earth Society that most people go to, that's like disinfo. That's to make it look ridiculous. And I know that you're even laughing at flat Earth. Well, we even laugh at certain models. We say, no, I see, I understand where you're going. A pancake flying in space is ridiculous. The idea that you can just go off the edge, that's ridiculous. So give it some time and at least look and see what exactly they believe. If you're going to rip it down and you want to actually destroy it, because most people that become flat earthers went out to debunk it, right? I can't tell you how many
everybody's people, origin story in this theory.
Exactly. They say, this is ridiculous. I'm going out. I'm going to debunk this in an afternoon. And wait a minute, the afternoon turns into a weekend. The weekend turns to a week. And they're like, oh my goodness. And then all of a sudden they're like, whoa. And I'm not saying everyone's going to come to that conclusion, but if anything, go out and find out exactly how can this many people believe in these theories, but also understand the model itself. We don't believe that we're a flying pancake in space. Right. We don't believe there's an edge. We don't believe you could ever fall off. There's no possible way. So things like this is important to understand. Not only that there's other people that have different models. So the one thing that we all agree on, whether it's myself or Mark Sargent or Marty Leeds or other people, that have even been on the broadcast, is we do not believe that we're on a spinning ball flying through space. But we differ on our ideas and where we're coming from, and we learn from each other and we ask questions. We're all on this discovery of truth, but we're not at the point where we're like, hey, our model is right, everyone's wrong, or believe us and believe in what we say. No, go out and do your own research. You'll be blown away at what you find out.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, and to that note, like I said, I posted in our forum today, do you have any questions for Robbie? And of course, there's the typical, how, like, where's the edge? Why don't we have a picture of the edge? How do we not fall off? This and this and this. And it's like I'm trying to give you the information. We've talked about this many, many times. And if you want to find out how that works, just look at the flat Earth map idea. Or any idea, like, look into it for 2 seconds. You can find that out if you want to know, because the problem is we can't just keep talking about this and then every time we bring up the topic and ask if you have questions, start from square zero or below. And like, if you want to know, you need to look into it a little bit for yourself. And I know that, I went on a different podcast recently, actually, as a guest, called Don't Feed the Trolls. And I went on as a flat Earth advocate and did my best, which is pales in comparison to what I'm sure you're going to do here. But a lot of the things that he asked were, it got very heated on his part, not on my part. But he comes from like a background of scientists and everything. And one point that he kept bringing up is, so maybe some things don't add up, and I get that. Like scientifically, these certain measurements don't add up exactly, but I find it a hard stretch to go from, I can see a boat further than I should be able to the whole Earth is flat. And yeah, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, well, I can just speak to it and say that this topic is just so far out there. I mean, you can probably grasp lizard man run the earth easier than flat earth. So what I say in conspiracy circles, or I talk about like kind of, a scale. And that's what I did with Scientism Exposed. Now, you might know someone in your family or a good friend, and, they kind of are suspicious about JFK. They're kind of like, there might have been another shooter or something weird's going on. I mean, they even released the files, So
Right.
Again, there were inconsistencies, but they look into 9/11 and they say, nope, the official report 100% agree with everything. Building 7, no, that's all fine and dandy. And, buildings melt, with fuel and everyone's cool. Then they're not ready for this topic, okay? You've got to kind of walk with them. So what I say in the conspiracy kind of circles is I say if you're dealing with someone on that scale, you got to kind of walk them through it. You got to walk them through 9/11. You got to walk them through. You got to get up even just to the moon landing. Now, that's why I say the moon landing is critical, because again, if you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, of course they landed on the moon, you morons, then of course all this topics beyond that is just going to look stupid. But I would imagine, and I've done the poll myself, anybody that is open to looking at flat Earth, even if they're not 100%, they're really skeptical on NASA, they're skeptical on the moon landing, or they just outright do not believe it. That's it. To me, it's the prerequisite. So in a truth-seeking circle, that's your prerequisite. If you're talking to someone, so that guy that you were, where it got heated, guarantee he was like, absolutely, they landed on the moon,
Right.
100%. Because the reality is you won't find someone that says, no, of course I didn't land on the moon, and no, I wouldn't buy into any of this other stuff. Most people are open to it because, again, if they lied to us about the moon landing, wait a minute, if they can't get to the moon, how far can they go? Well, so far in 50 years, the furthest they're going is 400 miles, they're saying, and I don't even believe they're going that far. But again, that's what they're saying. That's a little suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
But let's just say that, whatever, you believe in the SpaceX, throwing a Tesla Roadster up in space and all this stuff to Mars. And the fact of the reality is they're not putting men, that far. And they did it no problem in the 60s and 70s. So the moon landing is the prerequisite. And understand this topic, you can come to it 3 different ways. You can come to it conspiratorial. So if you're talking to someone in conspiracy circles, there you go. You can come to it from, we talked before, religion or biblical or literal interpretation, because there is a ton of Bible verses to support the fact that we are not moving and we're not a ball flying through space. It doesn't exist. So I'm sorry, somebody could sit there and look at it and say, oh no, I don't believe it, and I'm a Christian, and how dare you. Find me the verse that supports the fact that the earth is moving. First of all, forget the shape. I always tell people the shape is important, people. Don't worry about the shape. Let's just backtrack and get into this whole idea of the Big Bang cosmology. And if you're a Bible literalist, try to support it biblically. Try to support the Big Bang. Try to support the fact that we're even moving. What you find is the opposite, that we're stationary, we're fixed, we don't move. What we see when we look in the sky, even with star trails, with time-lapse photography, is we see complete circles around Polaris, the North Star. We see our observations, our senses tell us something. We are taught otherwise. No, of course we're moving, but I don't feel it. No, but we're moving. So what I'm saying is everything is counter to even our senses that God gave us. He gave us our senses for a reason. To go against all of our senses doesn't even make sense, first of all. But again, you have that. You have also, the conspiracy, but you also have the scientific. So when you come to this just purely on the scientific method, try it. Use the empirical method and try to scientifically prove the curvature of the Earth or the movement of the Earth. NASA, forget pictures, forget, oh, you dropped on your head, or you stupid idiot, we've got scientists. No. Again, that's not scientific. Just because a scientist discovers or says something, we can go out and we can scientifically prove these things. That is good. Science is good. So go under the good scientific method. Don't go under the hypothetical, theoretical, black holes, dark matter nonsense that they're spouting these days. They're actually admitting that, they say that usually in science, if they're off by a factor of 2 or 3, that's a big deal. That's not good at all. They admit in cosmology that they're off by a factor of 120. That's 120 zeros off. That they admit this. So when they're saying in cosmology, they are so far off track, they're even more off with evolution. So again, if you're going to sit there and be skeptical on evolution, well, why don't you look at cosmology? They're admitting they don't even know. They don't have a clue. So all these things they're telling us, like the distance, how far a star is, how big a star is, everything. They don't have a clue. A star has never been measured. There is no scientific way to actually measure a star precisely at all. They can come up with theories. They can come up with all these ideas. So again, the idea is just question it. Go through the idea of questioning your world. There's nothing wrong about it. And stop with the insults. The whole idea that you just have to insult someone. The reality is that most of these flat earthers that you ridicule.
Roger Paxton, listen to that.
Yeah. If you actually were actually to go on a debate, you probably would be again, it would be embarrassing for you because, again, they're very equipped when it comes to the methodology, when it comes to the models, when it comes into all the figures. That's the cool thing about this topic. Even if you discover this topic, you will actually equip yourself with learning more about the heliocentric Big Bang. If you want to hold to that and you want to believe in that, that's fine. You will actually learn more about it. You will learn, like I said, the 8 inches per mile, the curvature rates. I mean, that's fascinating. But again, we got a problem. If we're at 8 inches per mile squared and you're looking at something through optics at 50 miles away, wait a minute, it should be a half a mile below the curvature of the Earth. How is it we're seeing it? Ask yourself these questions. And we're seeing this everywhere. People doing experiments all over the world. They're zooming in on stuff over 100 miles away. At over 100 miles away, it should be like 1.4 miles below the curvature of the Earth.
Right.
Wait a minute. How are we seeing this? So on a ball, at 25,000 miles, getting into these formulas, there is no way you should be able to see these objects. And again, people will say, well, it's a mirage. Well, we know what a mirage looks like. It's wavy, it's inverted. Listen, you can come up with all these ideas, but when you start asking the questions, why is it that we're seeing objects in the distance that on a ball at 8 inches per mile squared dropping with the curvature rates, we should not be able to see them? This is the question that a lot of scientists right now, are looking at, everywhere, and more are going to do this. So get ready. You can laugh at it, mock it, but again, this thing is getting larger and larger, and there are more people coming to this topic because, again, they're looking, they're discovering, they're asking the questions about their world, and they're realizing that there is a lot more than meets the eye.
Hey, Dan Smots here. I'm taking a second to interrupt myself talking to talk about myself because, I don't get paid a penny for the hours and hours that I put into creating this show for you guys in your greedy little ears, and I've got a family to feed. To make that happen, I run my own media business called Goulash Media. If you have a need in anything from video production to graphic design to audio production and beyond, you can get it all for a painfully fair price at Goulash Media. In video, I do weddings, music videos, commercials, pageants, plays, etc., etc., etc. For design, I do photo editing, album art, logos, branding, business cards, merchandise, you name it. For audio, I do engineering, production, editing, jingles, and, well, podcasts. So if you've got a media need of any kind, or if you'd just like to give a little something back and help keep my children fed, check out all the endless options at my website, goulashmedia.net. That's goulash, Goulash, media.net, where we cater to the little guy with the big vision. Okay. Like we said before, everybody that starts to dig into this theory in any capacity, giving it a shred of thought, it should only take like 30 seconds to debunk it if every measurement that they tell us is correct. Was there a specific point that you can point to, like a specific piece of evidence that made you think, might be onto something here? Like any, I mean, there's tons and tons of evidence. I don't like to be the guy who says, if you want to know, look into it yourself, but it's an hour show, so we can't cover every single little shred of evidence. But is there like one specific thing that you would point to?
Sure. I mean, like I mentioned about seeing things in the distance, right? Another thing was, no matter if you're on a beach or on a mountain or in a, weather grade balloon, 120,000 feet, in the sky, the horizon stayed at eye level, right? So if you're dealing with a ball, the higher you went in altitude, the horizon would drop. And what we're seeing is the opposite. We're seeing the horizon staying at a high level, no matter what altitude you're at. I mean, these things were really interesting. They were curious. But again, for me, it was just nonstop evidence after evidence after evidence. I mean, I don't know if I could just hold on to this if I was looking into the proofs, if there was one or two. I mean, I still might be, it might be a little bit shaky, But again, there were so many. It just continued to snowball, and more proofs would surface. I mean, for me, and this was kind of my discovery and my journey. For me, though, what convinced me was the Bible. Right, being a literal Bible literalist, that was what convinced me. But just like in my journey, when at the age of 21, when my life miraculously changed, I still didn't just go off on my own direction and believe everything. I still was one of those guys that was hungry for the truth, and I was hungry to know. I wanted to know for sure. I wanted to know for sure about this Jesus guy. I wanted to know for sure that maybe, what if evolution is true? What if God used evolution, to create, all these sort of things. So for me, I didn't just believe anything. I was hungry for the truth. So the same way when it came to this topic, even though I believed it because the Bible said it, and again, I could just believe in what the Bible said in supporting the fact that we did move, that it was a young Earth instead of millions of years old. I still wanted to go out and see, wait a minute, using the scientific method, there should be a reason to kind of validate that, right? To support the fact that if we're not on a ball, then again, if I went out using my senses, if I went out using the scientific experiment and tried to do experimentation, prove the fact that if we're not on a ball, we should be able to see pretty further than what they're saying on a ball. Mm-hmm. This is what led me to believe all of these things. So I found it very, very fascinating, just to see how many different things came to light. And all the different things, whether it's, what about the edge? What about, seasons? What about, and you see these funny memes where it shows like the sun, lighting up the entire earth, and it's day, right. There's no day and night. Again, all these things, when you start really looking into it, you find out that it all makes sense when you're dealing with a smaller sun and a closer in proximity to the earth, rather than a sun that's 93 million miles away and the size that they tell you it is. So what I'm saying is, if you take the idea of what they purport the sun being and the size and how far away it is, then yeah, flat earth becomes ridiculous. I understand that. But what you have to do is you have to start from scratch. So if you're going to ridicule this, laugh at this, and you want to debunk it, at least come to it and debunk it based on all of the facts, understanding what most flat earthers believe the sun to be, what they believe the planets to be, what they believe the stars to be. Don't look at modern day scientism when it comes to telling, what stars are, the fact that, all stars are other suns. Sorry, but no, they're not other suns. They're distinctly different, and it's a fascinating study. So each one of these things, coming back to it and discovering truly what stars are, what the moon is, what the sun is, all these things, it's really fascinating, but it will give you an idea of what flat earthers believe, or what people questioning, modern day cosmology when it comes to the Big Bang heliocentric universe, what we've been taught. And to me, there's nothing greater than discovering your world and finding out, what the truth is. And I say this all the time to people, why do you believe what you believe? Is it because you were taught something? Is it because you read something in a book? Is it was because a teacher told you? Is it because you saw something on TV? Why do you believe what you believe? So ask yourself that question and go for it. That's all you need to do. Go for it. And there's nothing wrong with discovering your world, using the scientific method and not listening to what man has taught you.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, as we stated, there's a lot of different people in the Flat Earth movement who believe a lot of different things. Call them maybe denominations of the Flat Earth movement. But some take it in the spiritual direction. Some take it as like alien enclosure. Some take it in a whole bunch of different directions. I think Mark Sargent At least back when I last listened to him, he took it in kind of an alien direction. In your documentary, you talk about how, the whole alien idea is kind of a deception. But I mean, you had Mark Sargent at your conference, and you've referenced him a couple times tonight. Do you think that is detrimental? I'm not saying that. I don't know for sure if that's where he is now. I haven't heard from him in a while. But do you think that is a problem?
No, we all have different beliefs within like flat Earth. That's the one thing is like there's not one common, belief system where we all believe the same thing. So everyone holds to kind of different ideas. I hold to a biblical view of our enclosed cosmology, right? So when we're getting into aliens, for me, I believe it is a deception, but I believed aliens were a deception even before I came to this topic.
Sure.
But I get into the alien deception a lot more in Scientism Exposed 2. So in the sequel, I go really in depth because again, the one big question you get told or asked all the time is why would they lie? Why would they lie? So the question is, why would they lie? But also, what would they prepare us for? Because it's not just a lie. That's not the end. That's a means to the end. So what I would say is watch the documentary because it really gets tied together really well to show you that, yeah, there is an agenda and there is a plan. So the whole alien deception, the fact of aliens from other planets, all this idea, the fact that it's getting leaked into the mainstream. If this was really true, it wouldn't even be leaked. The media wouldn't even tolerate it. The idea that it's getting out there is all part of this kind of deception in my mind. So for me, when it comes to the idea of alien deception, when it gets into the idea of other planets, no, there isn't. We're in an enclosed world. Think kind of like the Truman Show. And for anyone that's watched that movie, it's a great movie to watch just to even look at it from a hypothetical standpoint. But it's intriguing how, Truman only understood his world based on what he was brought up in. And if everyone was teaching you something, well, what would we believe? And there's some great movies out there that have showed the same idea that children were brought up. And what they did as an experiment is that they, the 13th century, and they made all these children believe that this is kind of the age they were living in kind of an enclosed kind of community. Well, you take this on a grand scale, and it gets incredibly interesting. Now, when you see the Truman Show, there's some things that obviously would be laughable, but the premise is really the same. Creator watching down on us, being in there, being cared for in that way, because Truman was, incredibly cared for. But Truman definitely wanted that freedom. He wanted to explore. He wanted to take off. He wanted to do whatever. So again, there's some parallels in there I find very, very striking and interesting. So there are some people that hold to enclosed cosmology that we're in kind of like a snow globe. There's other people in flat Earth that don't. They believe that we're on an endless plane. There's other flat earthers that believe all sorts of different ideas. But again, what they all hold to and what we all have the similar belief on is that we're not on a spinning ball flying through space. So I guess that's what kind of unifies us, and we're all skeptical based on the scientism narrative. We're all skeptical when it comes to what NASA is telling us, what they're seeing, 18 trillion miles away with their magical lenses on their magical telescopes. I mean, the idea that you can see trillions of miles with any type of lens is laughable. But the idea that they can just kind of say whatever they're seeing and we believe it, that scientists discovered, all these ideas, really, I get into it with my documentaries, Scientism Exposed. You watch the first one, but getting into the sequel, it gets deeper into the agenda, and it also gets into things like Antarctica. I think Antarctica is another really interesting thing where you get into the interesting alien activity or different things that have been going on down in Antarctica, but also how it's the one place that has been kind of sectioned off by all these different countries. It's the longest standing peace treaty in the entire world. Right. Look into the Antarctica Treaty. It's fascinating because you have all these people that were trying to divide up Antarctica because it was told by Admiral Byrd that there were more resources for the world 10 times over. There was uranium and there was like gold and there was all this amazing stuff down there. And yet something happens and they all clear out of there. They sign this peace treaty and they say it's only going to be for science and, it's military. And that nobody can go there. Now people will say, "Oh, of course I can go to Antarctica." Sure you can. You could basically ask your government. You have to write a letter. You can get approval. Then you can pay like $20,000 or $30,000 to go there. It's incredibly expensive. Now once you get there, you're going to have a tour guide. You can take some pictures with some penguins because the only thing that lives down there is penguins. But if you say, "Hey, I want to go backpacking. I want to go journey," no. That ain't loud. And if you think that you can actually go freely roam Antarctica, you're sadly mistaken. It is the only place in the world where you're not allowed to freely roam. Look into Antarctica, because for me, you had mentioned other things that, what was that tipping point? What were those things that really started waking you up? From connecting the dots, Antarctica, wow, it was something fascinating. And I would say for anyone, just look into Antarctica and find out why all the secrecy, why all the weirdness, just look into it. I mean, you could spend a whole weekend just looking at Antarctica. And I think for many people, they're going to want to go deeper and deeper when they understand all the secrecy and the weirdness that goes on. I mean, they just had a bunch of, people going down to Antarctica. Just type that in, look into the news, find out what's going on in Antarctica. And I think, like even the map that you have in the very back, what I find fascinating is that's the official UN flag that you have on in the back. And what's interesting is there is something that's missing on that. First of all, most flat earthers would hold to it's called the Aqua Distant Map when it comes to as a muffled map, and that's what's purported there. That is pretty much, I would say, a lot of flat earthers hold to that map. Well, interesting enough, the UN does as well too. So it's not a flat Earth map that's in the back there. That's the UN map. But what's interesting is there's a country missing. That's right, Antarctica. What's interesting is you see a border. You see kind of the leaves going around it. What a lot of flat earthers would believe is that you can't fall off the edge because we're surrounded by like an ice shore. That there is, and again, you can look at the pictures yourself. There is like 100 feet of ice, in Antarctica. So again, you look into the military operations like Operation High Jump. They had an operation going down there, Operation High Jump. What's even more interesting is when you look into the military operations in the 50s and 60s, you got Operation Fishbowl.
Right.
Fishbowl. I mean, you can't even make this stuff up, right? You got Russia and the U.S. sending up, rockets into the upper atmosphere, blasting away, detonating. And you're going, wait a minute, what's going on? But that military exercise that Russia and the U.S. were both, the U.S. portion of it was called Operation Fishbowl. There's Operation Deep Freeze, but Operation High Jump, Operation Fishbowl, and it gets even more startling when you really start researching these things. So again, things like Antarctica in the back, missing on the UN flag, again, looking at that map itself, most flat earthers would hold to the idea that, they would say 100%, but they'd say there's a lot of things that we would hold to when it comes to that map that's in the back. But with what you're seeing in the back there, that's not flying through space. There is no space. We're stationary. Everything revolves around us. We're stationary. We don't move. And again, that's the whole idea. So when you stop and think about the idea that we're stationary and that everything moves and we don't, but yet we're not in space. Space is above us in the sense, but space and what we've been taught is a lie. The whole endless idea that's ever expanding. These are the type of things that you start really asking questions and go, wait a minute. Well, they say they're in Pluto, they say they're on Mars with rovers, but the reality is they can't get very far with man in their crafts anymore. But hey, they can send dummies like Starman in the Tesla Roadster, and deceive the world. And most people, I had people ringing me up that think I'm, a moron or a retard for believing in flat Earth, and yet they're saying, dude, something's up with that car. I'm going to look into a few things. So it was almost like they went too far with the SpaceX nonsense, because a lot of people, are starting to look into it and going, wait a minute, people are believing that's real? That's not a joke? I'm like, no, that they're saying that's real.
Right.
Really. So, and these are people that are they aren't skeptical at all about space. They love NASA. They're like, wait a minute, that's kind of ridiculous. I'm like, absolutely. Wait a minute. You look at the extreme temperatures, when you start getting to the thermosphere, when you start getting into the idea of being in space. I mean, that was a regular car that Elon Musk said. It was just a regular car. Mm-hmm. Yep. The tires were perfect. The tires didn't blow. The paint's not, melting. And they're in temperatures of 2,000 degrees. Look up the temperatures in the thermosphere. These are the type of things we're asking the questions, and yet science or scientism do not have accurate, definitions of the answers that will really give us the idea of what our world is. And we need to come to the truth, and we need to ask these questions. And there's nothing wrong with holding these people's feet to the fire and saying, well, wait a minute, come to the table, let's debate these ideas. But no, they just laugh and ridicule and say, no, we would never debate you silly people. And it's like one by one, they're going to have to, because as this continues to grow, these community people, in all different countries, all different languages are starting to investigate the world they've been taught. At some point, there will be a tipping point, and they will have to come to the table. But the tragic thing here is that the world is going to discover that science that they held on to, that will have all the answers to dismiss these moron flat earthers. It's not going to happen. They're just going to be able to show pictures. They're going to show video, but they're not going to be able to come using the true scientific method and prove our world based on the curvature and based on the fact that we're flying around the universe at untold speeds.
Absolutely. And there's a lot covered there, as you do very well, and I love it. But back on the Antarctica stuff, that was some of the stuff that first got me interested in it. I mean, you've got this Antarctica Treaty, like you said, it's a well of resources, as Admiral Byrd pointed out, and yet we all agree. I mean, we've got all these countries can't agree on a single thing any other time ever in the existence of humanity. But when it comes to the USS space station and when it comes to the Antarctica Treaty, we're all just good pals and we're in cahoots on the same thing. I just found that very, very fishy, very suspicious, at the very least.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, if you're one of those type of people that like to question things and things don't add up, that's what this whole journey is about. And I think that's what this discovery has led to is really, wait a minute, something doesn't make sense. I mean, yeah, I mean, the world has been, continually fought with wars and enemies, and yet you've got like 30 nations, the longest standing peace treaty over the fact that it's like, yep, we're going to patrol the border. No one's going to go there unless they have permission, and they can only go with a tour guide to take pictures with penguins on the, the shoreline. But you're not allowed to go explore there. Now, here's the really intriguing part. You would think with all the corporations, with all like BP Oil, you would think of all the amazing money that they'd be able to petition and say, we want to go down there and drill, because there's supposed to be oil, there's supposed to be lots of resources in Antarctica. They're not even allowed to go. So you're kind of going, wait a minute, corporations aren't even allowed to go to Antarctica. Something is very, very interesting with the world being run by money and, follow the money. And you'd think, hey, they've got untold amounts of money. They could just buy anything. They could buy up politicians. One place they cannot buy is space, and they cannot buy Antarctica. This whole idea of like SpaceX and Virgin Galactic being private companies, don't deceive yourselves. Start following the trail. NASA's in bed with them, with all these different space agencies. They're working with them in cahoots. And if you honestly think that the first rockets were discovered not by NASA, they were done by SpaceX, like all this great breaking technology. Again, this is all part of the deception. I know it seems like a stretch. Just start looking into it and see the idea that we were supposed to have men, to the moon multiple times over. Virgin Galactic has promised it for years over years. You can see the failed promises with both these agencies, yet they take millions and millions of dollars for space travel from people, and they're still waiting. And I tell people, you're going to wait for a long time. They're not going to the moon because they've never been to the moon, and a lot of people think that's crazy. But understand that now the mission is Mars. Well, why would they go to Mars? Because our optics, our technology has caught up to the moon. We can verify if they land on the moon, unless they go to the dark side of the moon when no one can see. Right. But the idea that, I have a P900 camera. I can zoom in incredibly close on the moon. I can't zoom incredibly close on Mars. But the whole idea is going off to Mars. You ever notice that now the ambition is going to Mars, right? They've moved off the idea of the moon. People say, well, they don't need to go to the moon. They've already been there. I'm sorry, what about Russia? What about China? What about all the women the feminist groups out there? You would think they'd be storming NASA saying, we demand to have the first woman to walk on the moon.
Right.
Isn't that weird? No woman's walked on the moon. So I say all the time to women to get them all up in the roars. I'm like, you know what? You need to start a petition and say, we want a woman to walk on the surface of the moon. I just find it funny. You start getting into all these ideas. It hasn't happened. They even admit the fact in the ISS that they can go no further than low Earth atmosphere. You start getting into the idea, look into all the space agencies, the furthest that they claim to go is 400 miles, even less than that. Yet the moon supposedly is 500,000 miles away.
Right.
1960s and 70s. You start looking into the megahertz power on the Apollo, it's less than an iPhone 3. Yes, iPhone 3. Most of us have an iPhone 6, 7. The megahertz power in our iPhones is like 1,000. It's like 10,000 times the computing power in the Apollo. And yet we're led to believe they can go in there no problem, onto the moon and back. But yeah, this is the idea. So I always sit and say, look, this topic seems silly. It seems ridiculous. And trust me, I laughed at it myself. I thought it was ridiculous. And I rolled my eyes and said, there has to seriously be something wrong with someone that could believe that we're on a flat earth. I mean, these guys are ridiculous. I believed it. So I empathize. I'm right with you. And that's why I don't mind people saying you're a moron or saying these discouraging things to me, because I would have said the same thing. I would have been typing the same. I'd have been the Mr. Troll, I'd have been like, what a bunch of... So I'm cool with that to a degree, but really just look into it and find out the world that you live in. And if you discover that it's been a lie, wow, it's going to change your whole world for sure, literally.
Absolutely. And now a lot of conspiracy theorists or enthusiasts or whatever is the acceptable term. I know us crazy people are not keen on conspiracy theorists, but a lot of us seem to feel like the whole
conspiracy realist.
Sure. A lot of conspiracy people seem to think that the whole flat Earth movement is kind of a psyop or a distraction away from something else, some bigger issue that we're all missing, something more local and important. Like, what's your take on that?
Well, what I would see with the community is what I have seen, when all of a sudden it's not like we get together, for example, like at the Flat Earth Conference, we get together, but we would talk about so many other issues. And what I said before about the moon landing or 9/11 or JFK, the one thing I find about flat earthers is because maybe they're so open to actually even looking into this topic, they've already kind of gone up that ladder. They've already gone through 9/11, chemtrails, GMOs, vaccines, they're just, maybe they're the one that we're the hungry ones that we want the upper echelon of the conspiracies. Right. So what I'm saying is we don't just talk about the shape of the earth. We talk about everything, because if hypothetically this is true, it is the motherlode of lies. It is the umbrella, I say, that everything else fits under. Mm-hmm. Climate change, you get into global warming, you're getting into vaccinations, everything all falls together. Like this whole idea of when you understand that they lied to us, because most people can't understand, well, wait a minute, it doesn't make sense. Why would they lie to us about, who cares if it's a triangle or a cube? Right. But it does. It makes a lot of sense. It does. There's control factors, there's other things. And it's something that you have to go on your own journey to discover. Me just saying, this is the reason they'd lie. Watch go to my YouTube channel, Celebrate Truth, watch Scientism Exposed. I go through this, and if you're tracking through the first one, you're going to love Scientism Exposed too, because I go deeper into it, and you start to go, wait a minute, wow, it's starting to make sense. For a lot of people, I get so many emails from people saying, wow, it really has helped me wake up to the lies of the world and understanding it. But the idea that the people that come to this topic are just distracted, we talk about all the other important topics, from false flags to vaccinations to GMOs to you name it. We're probably going to talk about it, right? So to me, the idea that, we're distracted and we're not focusing on real issues, if anything, the opposite is true. We're focusing on all the issues, but we're saying, look into this, because if a person looks into this and they discover it to be true, they're going to be open to everything. 9/11 will be a piece of cake for them. It won't be a stretch. It won't be a stretch for them to understand that the government could lie to them about the Twin Towers, when the fact is they've lied to us about the world. Right?
If you find the foundation, then all the rest of it should be pretty easy to accept.
So I tell people, hypothetically, if them lying to us about our world is true, hypothetically, then it's not a stretch to understand they could lie to us about a whole lot of other things. So it really opens you up to understanding your world and looking into every issue. So for me, we don't just talk about the shape of the earth, we talk about everything, certain things that are in the news, right? The latest, shooting that happened, all these things. We're talking about these issues. We're critically looking at, and we're starting to piece it together and say, wait a minute, the evidence is not supporting the official narrative based on mainstream media. Mainstream media is coming to this with different slants, with different ideas. Even the witnesses are saying we saw something different. There's contradictory statements with the witnesses that were at the scene, and yet we're the crazy ones for questioning the official mainstream narrative. So again, to me, if you'll critically start looking at the evidence of like SpaceX or NASA or scientism, you'll look at what mainstream media tells you. You'll look at what the Federal Reserve is trying to cram down your throat with the Federal Reserve banking system, with the central system, all these things. It's like an inner web that kind of comes together, and just like the map behind you, you understand there's a grid. And what's intriguing about the UN flag, another thing I'll bring up because I keep looking at it through this interview, is there's 33 sectors. Have you ever noticed that there's 33 sectors? When you start counting it, there's 33. Now some people say, 33. It's an intriguing number. When you get into the 33 degrees of Mason, when you get into Illuminati, all these things, it's interesting because as you move up the steps, in that ladder, that's the upper echelon. And again, there is kind of a secrecy and there is kind of a cabal that does run the world. If you haven't even looked into that, then forget this topic. You need to go back. You need to start looking into the global elite, the globalism. Again, we're getting into these terms. Those terms are there for a reason. But again, that's the intriguing part, is you need to go back. You need to discover the fact that our world, our education system, the media, the government, but even the controlling elite, the banking system, This has all been put in place, and it runs the world. It truly does. There are literal men like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, and you need to look into it, because when you understand that they kind of are at such a high level that they don't even answer to presidents, and that presidents are puppets, when you understand that idea, everything else kind of comes together easier. And again, what's wrong with going to the absolute furthest end of conclusion here, that they could be lying to us about the reality of, what we all know and believe? Why is it that so many people, and incredible, smart people, intellectual people, engineers, pilots, scientists, everyone, doesn't matter what your belief, religious, non-religious, they're all coming to this topic and saying, wow, we have been lied to on a grand scale, and there is so much proof to support it. Not one or two things. There's a reason why there's international conferences happening in different countries around the world. And yes, I said around. You can go around a flat Earth. That's another misconception. Round. Yes.
We'll get into some of the very simple questions in the bonus stuff for sure.
Sure.
Now, one of the main things that, of course, always comes up is, scientists are smarter. Like, this has been established because all these people agree that, it is the way it is, and it has to be. You have to accept that because you're not a scientist. You can't find out, you can't, do the same tests as they can. You can't possibly prove that they're wrong. There's that, and there's also the obvious question, who are these elite? Who are the people that are tricking these scientists or convincing these scientists to give us false information?
Sure. And I mean, a lot of people actually think it's one big, massive conspiracy. But again, you understand that there's a lot of really great people that work at NASA. There's a lot of people that work on spacecraft that they really truly believe that that spacecraft or that rover is now on Pluto. But so they don't have to be in on the deception. And furthermore, the idea that like all these scientists are out there deceiving the world. They wake up in the morning and they're there having breakfast with their family and they're like, I get to go out and deceive the world. No, it's nothing sinister like that. They were taught by their parents. They were taught by their professors. All it is just it's an indoctrinated system where we believe what we're taught. So no, there's nothing sinister about the fact that there's so many people in on this. I go so far as to say that this whole thing is spiritual in nature. There's like a force, there's an evil presence behind the entire scene. So no, everyone's kind of indoctrinated, brainwashed. It's like the Matrix. If you wake up to the Matrix, you understand the world you live in. So really, it's a good way of looking at this. That no, you don't know. You honestly laugh at anyone else that doesn't believe it, right? It's like in the Matrix, if someone said, "Hey, this is all, this is not true," they'd laugh at you. Get out of here. Of course it is. Look at the steak. It's real. I'm eating this steak. It tastes delicious. So in the Matrix, anyone would laugh at anyone with an idea. The only way someone, would have not believed it is if they were woken up to the lie, or if, of course, they had a decision saying, look, if you take this pill, there's no going back. You can't wake up from it, and probably you're going to be, resentful, and you're not going to want to go that way. And I would say the unfortunate thing with coming to this reality is you can't go back. And there's like, once you go flat, they say you can't go back. And it's true, right? Once you go flat, you never go back. Because you can't go back. When you actually see the world for what it is, and every critical angle, and when you earnestly try to find it. I was doing an interview the other day, and I was saying, honestly, I would love for this not to be true, so I could go back to regular life. People aren't ridiculing me, calling me names, laughed at. I mean, I've never been laughed at more in my life. I don't want to be known for this topic. I want to be known for any other topic, under the sun, except this topic. But here I am, and I say that I didn't choose this topic chose me. So to me, it's a providential type of thing. But no, a lot of people don't have to be under this deception. I would say that Neil deGrasse Tyson, he thinks that all these flat earthers are morons because he really believes it. He doesn't believe that he's out deceiving people. He believes he's telling the truth. He believes the reality of the world that's been presented. The fact that, he believes that nothing created everything, that he comes from stardust. He believes that. He believes he's thankful to the stars because, like Lawrence Krauss says, and you probably heard that in the documentary Scientism Exposed, he says, don't forget, don't thank Jesus for dying for you, thank the stars. So these guys really do have a spirituality behind it. These guys do have, an allegiance. Their allegiance is to scientism. That's what they're holding to. Don't understand that you will hold something up as your God in life. You could say, oh, I'm not religious at all. But if you're holding up scientism, that's your God. That's what you hold. That's what you cling on to. And again, you don't have to be deceiving anyone. I don't think someone listening to the show thinks you're deceiving people. They think that we're deceived. So again, that's the whole mentality. No, I don't think that everyone would have to be in on the lie. I just believe that it's something that they were taught, that their parents taught them, their professors, their teachers, just like we were all taught. I believed in the globe, and I was a spinning ball flying through space 5 years ago. 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same. So, I mean, I could talk to you for literally hours on this topic. We are an hour show, so I want to keep it a little tight. I honestly, I want to dig more into the spiritual stuff than we did, and I want to dig into a bunch of different topics, but we got
another time. We could do part two. We could do part two down the road.
I'd be down. Before we do bonus and hopefully do part two in the future, I got to know, how does your family react to this? Like, I mean, you host this big conference for basically science heresy. Like, what do they say about that? Like, how do they respond?
Oh, overall, I mean, they've been pretty supportive. I mean, they obviously don't believe what I believe, but they've been pretty supportive. I mean, now getting into my greater family, I mean, I've had some pretty crazy responses. My brother-in-law removed me off Facebook. Like I said, I've never seen a topic that gets people so heated. And so what? So what? If we want to believe that we're not on a spinning ball, what's the big deal? But people get angry. They get livid. I mean, I would put it this way. I'm doing a conference at the largest mall in North America, in Canada, in the summer. So Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, as West Edmonton Mall. Well, I got a call from the mall the other day, and they've been getting so many people, complaining to the mall,
Angry
to the
that
actual
they're just
venue.
allowing you to come and talk.
Yeah, they're saying you need to put your foot down, and they're just kind of laughing, but they're saying, don't they understand it's a business? I mean, you're doing a conference, an international conference at our facility, but people are mad. They're angry, right? So I just find this funny. It's like we could have a conference talking about lizard people run the world, and people wouldn't care at all. They'd just be like, oh, a bunch of conspiracy theorists. There's something about this topic that get people irate, that make them ridicule, laugh at it. I mean, I've never seen so many different emotions tied to one topic. So to me, this is the intriguing part. But when it comes to my family, there's ones that are supportive. My wife was kind of the one that, I was worried about the most because, I'm studying this for 3 weeks and I'm like, oh, I got to come to my wife and tell her I believe the earth is flat. This is not
I had a
good.
very similar experience with my wife. So
this is not good. This is not good. But the interesting thing is my wife accepted it in literally 10 seconds. I was like, no, you don't understand. I just said I think the earth is flat. And she's like, if the Bible says it, then I believe it. That was it. And the amount of conviction and
that is not the same as my wife, but
my wife, I was like, shame on me for not even being able to have faith like that. Like God bless her, but she just had the faith and conviction to be like, if the Bible says it, then I believe it. That was it. So that was cool. So I've always had the support of my wife, and she's obviously been massively supportive. She's been helping me with the conferences. The one that I had, the very first conference ever in the history of the world, was in Raleigh, North Carolina. We had like over 500 people. We had the media. I mean, we had ABC Nightline, BBC. We had CBS. We had HBO, like Vice News. It was incredible time. And again, they were all there. And even talking to them, even off air, they were saying something interesting is going on, because they can't just discount it as a bunch of idiotic people. Because it's bringing in people from so many different backgrounds, so many different beliefs, so many different professions, and they're even going, what's going on? So you're going to see a lot more curiosity, but you're also going to see a lot more hate when it comes to this topic. People are going to get mad and lose their mind. And so far with my family, I haven't had that. I've had more support, even though they don't agree, but I do have some family members that do agree, or that are at least questioning it, and some that are going to come out to my conferences and check it out and see, why is it that these guys believe what they do? And at least they'll be equipped to find out, what we don't believe. And we don't believe that we're on a flying disc through space, and we don't believe that we could just fall off the edge and stuff like this. So that helps just to kind of bring it to a level that's not so idiotic. It's idiotic, maybe, but it's not as crazy. Even us, we would laugh at ideas like Flat Earth Society, the fact that, we're a flying pancake in space. That seems preposterous and laughable. We don't believe we move at all. The Earth doesn't move.
So was 2017 the first year of the Flat Earth Convention or conference?
Yes, the very first, and that was the U.S. one. And then, like I said, this year we got the one in Canada in the summer, and then we have the one for U.S. is in Denver in the fall. But yeah, the one last year was the first ever. I mean, it was the first ever in any country in the history of the world. So It was like a very historic thing, and it was really gratifying, and it was just an incredible time. I think the biggest thing was for the community coming together. For a long time, we were watching people like Mark Sargent or Marty Leeds or different people online, and to me, bringing everyone in that people could see that there were real faces, to that name. And it just really bonded the community. And really, because we'd got so much ridicule and laughter, it was a time of just feeling safe, be together, and then meeting other people that were coming there that were curious on the topic and just asking questions. I mean, we weren't ramming it down their throat. We were just saying, this is great. Don't listen to us. Go do your own research. That's the one motto of Flat Earth is don't listen to us. Go do your own research. And I think it's such a beautiful motto. It's just basically saying, look.
It's pretty rare in the science community. Don't listen to us. Go do it for yourself.
It's incredibly rare. It's rare in any type of belief system to be like, no, believe what we believe. We believe the truth. No. Right. Don't listen to what I believe. Don't listen to what I say. Don't believe what my documentaries, put forward. Go and critically research it and try to examine the evidence that's put forward and see if what is presented is true. But don't believe stuff that you read and don't believe stuff that you see. I think it's a great thing. And I mean, why are we getting ridiculed so much when all we're saying is go out and do your own research? And I hold to that as something that's really important. And I'll keep saying that, to my dying day for sure.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I love it. And I would love to, as we said, have you on again for as much as my listeners might hate it, to do another episode. I would love to pick your brain even more on that. And let's do some bonus here. But, Robbie, let people know where they can find your documentaries and more information about you. Anything else even things that you want to plug or, point people in the right direction for resources on this topic?
Sure. Okay. Well, my website's celebratetruth.org, celebratetruth.org. You can find Scientism Exposed 1 and 2. Also on YouTube, if you just type in Celebrate Truth, those two words, or my name, you'll find my materials. But I have over 10 documentaries that I've done, not just on this topic. I have over 300 videos. My channel has been out on YouTube for almost 3 years. I have a big collection of works there. I'd invite anyone to go check it out there or go to my website, celebratetruth.org. As far as if you're interested in the conferences, you can go to fe2018.com. Just fe2018.com. You can learn about the conference in the USA or the conference in Canada or any upcoming conferences in any other countries that I have planned. All the information will be posted there. So obviously corresponding years, if you're watching this or listening to this and it's 2019, go to fe2019.com and you should be able to find the information. But yeah, so my information is Celebrate Truth. You can look for it on YouTube. You can Google Celebrate Truth or go to celebratetruth.org and check out Scientism Exposed. It'll be an incredible journey, and I think that it will open your eyes to a lot of deceptions in scientism. And if anything, it will teach you the difference between what is good, true science and what's scientism. And I think that I break that down very well, and it will lead you on your journey. And from there, I wish you the best on discovering truth, because the truth will set you free.
Awesome. Love it. Well, Robbie, thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I will undoubtedly, get yelled at for all of it, but I really enjoyed it personally. And if you ever want to come back on, you're more than welcome to be here. But yeah, thanks, man.
Thank you so much for having me on. I look forward to the future and just keep discovering it. No matter what kind of attacks or feedback you get, like I said, the one thing you will get is views, and you're going to get a lot of people. And even if there's 100 people that laugh at you, there's going to be that one person that's going to say, I'm going to look into that. I'm going to look into that. I see it all the time. It's one person at a time. And honestly, people are literally having their world changed. And I think it's an amazing thing. So blessings to you. Thank you so much. And real pleasure and honor.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. And if you made it this far, I'm proud of you. I really am. You're a decent human being. Hopefully you didn't get too triggered and throw your phone at the wall before you could get to this point. If you did, then you can't hear any words I'm saying anyway. As we said in the interview, Robbie and I recorded a bonus hour where he answered all the questions you guys submitted in the forum. If you'd like to hear that, if you'd like to hear a whole bunch of fun bonus content every single week, or if you'd like to just support the show and help me continue growing this thing bigger and better, you can do all of that by joining the Downers Club at tsidpod.com/support. The club is what keeps all of this going. Every dollar that you guys give, I put straight back into the show and expanding it, making everything bigger and better for your viewing and listening pleasure. So I really appreciate you guys. I really do. This week we had a club member, Scott McElroy, bump up his contribution up to $15 per month. So thank you, Scott. I like your style. And again, to the rest of you, if you like what we're doing here, you're going to love the club. So give it a shot. Go sign up at tsidpod.com/support. And if you're wondering how you can join the completely free forum and get in on the conversation, submit questions for guests like we did for Robbie Davidson, you can give input on the show, or just talk about a bunch of weird stuff with other weird people, just go to Facebook and type in The System Is Down Forum, ask to join, and if you look like a real human, I'll let you in, no problem. And last but not least, please help bump up our numbers by subscribing and reviewing the show on iTunes. Share the show with a couple friends this week. Do all the social media following, liking, and all that jazz. Links to all that stuff, if you're looking for it, can be found in the show description. Do all that, and I'll love you forever. And of course, if you'd be so kind as to allow me back into your ears again, I'll be here first thing next Monday with some more uncomfortable conversations for you. Until then, question everything and stay uncomfortable. Thanks. This has been a Goulash Media production. goulashmedia.net.
This concludes our broadcast day. Click.